Hellos and welcomes everyone, this is AnthWolf with a tutorial series for the game Europa Universalis IV, developed by Paradox Development Studio and published by Paradox Interactive. This game, along with a few others that I've played, obviously is the fourth in the Europa series, and they are based around grand strategy, empire management. And this one in particular is set between the periods of 1444 all the way up till 1821 historically. And basically you control a nation and you develop it, you grow it, and hopefully survive that turbulent period. And yeah, you go from there basically. There is a lot of in-game mechanics, a lot of management you have to do. A lot of things can screw you over quite nastily, and I thought before I started doing a playthrough series I would sit down briefly and do a tutorial series and basically introduce you to at least some of the basics and maybe some of the game mechanics that I am familiar with. I've only played about 60 hours of the series, whereas some people who are die-hard fans of the entire Paradox Interactive gaming releases basically have put probably hours into this game. It was released in August 2013 and there has been quite a few expansion DLCs released. The latest one, as the time of my recording this, was in October 2014, and that was called The Art of War. But now there is, by the time you may watch this video, there should be a newer one, a February 2015, which is actually this month that I'm speaking to you now, called El Dorado, which is introducing a custom nation build, I believe, as well as changing some of the American nations. But yeah, we shouldn't have to worry about it. I don't think it's going to change anything in a great way. If I don't explain something or I don't go into enough depth for you, in the description below I will provide a link to another YouTube hobbyist known as Quill18. He and a few others have done some single player and multiplayer playthroughs, basically series of Europa Universalis IV. I forget the words out. And he has a tutorial series that when I was interested in starting this game, I basically watched his tutorial videos. So yeah, you may have already used the description or you may have already watched this series, and therefore, why are you even here? Because it's probably not to hear the sound of my voice. So yeah, I think the first thing we should do is probably go into single player, and I will introduce you to probably the first steps you want to do. So yeah, welcome to the world in 1444. This is the terrain map mode, and as you can guess, it's mostly centralized Europe. But unlike Crusader Kings II, which was originally set when it was released between 1066 all the way up till 1448, I think it was. Basically, if I go to the political map mode here, which separates all the selectable nations, and there are a fair few of them, as you can see. You can obviously be an Indian nation like Bahamas here, or the Ming Empire, or you could be one of the nations of Japan, or if you're feeling very determined and very risky, you could be one of the Indian nations in 1444 that are over in North America, or one of the tribes in Mexico or in Southern America. There is pros and cons to doing this, and obviously I will briefly go over them in this tutorial series. But the first thing you'll want to do in this game is obviously consider what you want to do, where you want to start in this game. Most of the time you'll want to start right at the very beginning of the game itself. There is particular eras you can join, or you can just select a particular starting date of your own. Most of the time, most people will want to start at the very beginning of 1444. What I mean by this is, up till this point, the game is meant to be historically accurate. Every nation here is meant to be historically accurate to what was happening in 1444. Like, for example, between England and France, if I click on England at the moment, they are actually at war with France and France's vassal nations in the 100 Years' War, I believe it is. And if you take control of England or France as a nation, you will be thrust into a war straight away. Whereas most other nations, you're not that unfortunate. Like Castile, which can be formed into Spain, Portugal. You've got the Ottoman Empire. Obviously, yeah, there's quite a selection. You can play this however you want. You can be a very aggressive, warmongering nation, or you could be... I normally prefer to play something like Portugal and try to colonize, explore the American continents, basically. And you can do that throughout the game. This area, the Atlantic Sea at the time, is normally covered by a fog of war, I think known as Terra Incognito. And so you'll actually need to research in enhancing your technology to actually uncover this area, to actually discover the nations first of all. But yeah, so the first thing you'll probably want to do is if you want to pick a nation, and for us, I'm thinking, we'll pick the Mamelukes actually. Mamluks independent nation. It's one of the major nations. It's quite big at the time, but these are the things you'll want to consider. Obviously, when you select your nation, it will come up with its technology group, its religion, or its primary religion, your ruler, its tech level, obviously its ideas, what you can unlock, what improvements it can learn. And the Mameluke ideas are completely different, say, from the French ideas, or Castile's, or England's. Each nation, some of them might be very similar, but each nation has its own separate ideas, and they kind of hint towards how the play style of that nation should be. It also includes your manpower, force limit, and naval force limit. This is obviously land and naval are two separate things, and any diplomatic issues. So at the moment the Mamluks are guaranteeing the independence of Cyprus there, which means if anyone declares war on Cyprus, the Mamluks will automatically be drawn into the war to assist. Similar to France is guaranteeing the independence of Scotland. So one thing to consider, obviously, in your nation, is the manpower. First of all, the approximate manpower of the Mamelukes basically is manpower is considered as the eligible working able-bodied men that you can draw into your armed forces at any time. This will increase the larger nation you are, the more land you take over, or the more improvements you make to your provinces. But ideally, 30,000 is a good number. But during wartime, you will reinforce your armies quite fast, and this can recover quite slowly. And if you get drawn into a war when your manpower is severely reduced, your army will suffer. It won't replenish as fast, and that is an issue. Manpower is one of the major components when you are ready to go to war. Land force limit is very important as well. That basically means the maximum amount of armies you can have, how many stacks of 1,000 men you can have, before you start suffering a penalty to your military technology, I believe it is. And exactly the same with naval force limit, how many ships you can have on the water. But yeah, so when you're first looking at picking a nation, this is a beginning nation, these are some of the numbers you may want to pay attention to. Of course, the country size as well tells you how many provinces make up the nation you want to select. So the Mamluks have 35 provinces under them, whereas the likes of, say, Mzab. I'm going to pronounce these names wrong. I want to point this out. Maybe not in advance, because I'd probably already messed one or two of them up. But yeah, I am not the best speaker for some of the African nations, or in fact even some of the European nations I will probably mispronounce, and I apologise in advance for that. So Mzab only makes up 2 provinces. They only have a land force limit, and obviously they have the likes of Thameslen and Tunis beside them. So immediately they have a couple of bigger possible allies, possible rivals, which is also something we're going to go into in the series. So yeah, let's just pick the Mamluks and let us go in. Obviously, the final thing I should mention is obviously there are recommended nations that you should play. Nations you may want to play during that era. So if, say, instead, actually, say we go to 1492, when that's one of the major events, when he was Cristobal Colon was about to discover an entirely new world. Obviously in that stage, has anything majorly changed? It has. France has integrated some of its vassals. It's pushed England out of some of the French nations there, the French provinces. Get the words out properly. But yeah. And at that time, Castile, England, France and Portugal again are recommended nations, unlike the much wider selection at the 1444 mark. One other thing you may want to pay attention to, and I forgot to mention, which I will mention now, is obviously the other shortcut tabs you can use. Obviously, you first of all start off on the terrain map mode. This is going to be important, and I will explain why later. I like to prefer the political map mode. It's easier for me to follow, and also it tells me what's going on around with my neighbours. But of course you have the religious map mode. Obviously, ideally most of Europe is Catholic, but of course we have the Orthodox religion as well. We have a lot of Sunni nations, animist, shamanist, obviously the Hindu, Buddhist, Confucian, and I think Shinto is in Japan. I've just recently played a Shinto nation myself. Oh, and of course some of North America is Totemist as well. We also have the HRE, the Imperial map mode. Mostly important for the Holy Roman Empire, which at the moment is being led by Austria. Obviously the trade map mode. There are trade routes in this game, and it's one way to make a good amount of change basically. And there are, if you have so many provinces within a particular trade node, then you have maybe more trade power, and therefore the more the money going into there, the more trade power you have, the more money, the more of a percentage you get of that. And of course finally we have the diplomatic map mode, and again that's mostly, if you look at this, click one nation. So at the moment Portugal is allied with England, whereas England's at war with France. I don't normally use the diplomatic map mode so much myself, but it's something else you can look at, and when we get into the game there is a much wider selection. I say we'll play the Mamluks. I will end this video here because as soon as I press play, as I said, everything is historically accurate up until I press play. After that, and once I unpause the game after a couple of brief things, I will go through. I say brief, it could take us a while, but once I unpause the game and we begin playing, nothing will happen according to history. Things have happened which will never happen in any other game, and of course it will never be historically accurate. But yeah, I say I will end this here, and next time when we come back we will jump in as Mamluks and I will introduce some more elements to the game. So yeah, I'll see you in a moment.